Hey, I'm Mason King, host of the IBJ Podcast. And before we get into this week's episode, I want to tell you about the newest podcast from IBJ Media called Off the Record with the Indiana 250. In each episode, IBJ Media CEO Nate Feldman talks with a different leader on the Indiana 250 list of the state's most influential leaders. They discuss their vision for Indiana's future, their experiences in business, and their advice for other aspiring entrepreneurs. New episodes are released on select Thursdays. So go subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform so you can never miss an episode. Just search the Indiana 250 Off the Record. Thanks.
This is the IBJ Podcast for the week of December the 4th, 2023, brought to you by Taft. I'm your host, Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It's always a relief to have a well-known guest on the podcast because I don't need to spend much time explaining who they are. As you likely know, Joey Chestnut is the king of competitive eating. You almost certainly have seen video clips of him gulping down dozens of hot dogs, or boiled eggs, or tacos, or wings, burritos, Twinkies, and or spears of deep-fried asparagus. He, in fact, has more than 50 gastronomic world records, including a vaunted 76 Nathan's Famous hot dogs with buns eaten in 10 minutes. And he's the first to admit that competitive eating is a little weird, but he has a natural affinity for it, and it allows him to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. He confirms in our interview recent reports that he earned close to $500,000 in 2022. A few things brought him to the podcast studio last week. You might not know that he recently moved to Westfield, Indiana, here in the Indianapolis area, which is his home base for spending about 140 days a year out on the road. We chat about the reasons in our conversation. He was preparing last week for the 10th annual St. Elmo Shrimp Cocktail Eating Contest, which this year was being staged as part of the festivities for the Big Ten Football Championship just last Saturday. So we talk a bit about how he prepares to down somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 pounds of shrimp, plus St. Elmo's extra potent cocktail sauce. He recently hit 40, and it's not as easy as it used to be. But the lion's share of our conversation concerns how he built a career in a niche sport and all the revenue streams that he leverages to make a very good living. Here's our conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast Joey Chestnut, the king of competitive eating and a resident of Westfield, Indiana. Joey, thanks so much for coming downtown today.
Oh, happy to be here.
Right on. So we're a business publication. I have a bunch of questions I have for you about how you built your career and how you make a living in competitive eating. But first, I wanted to cover the 10th annual St. Elmo Shrimp Cocktail Eating Championship, which will take place on the afternoon of December the 2nd. Today is November the 30th. So you have 2 days. I am curious, is there anything that you would be doing at this point to get ready for the competition, or is preparation really more like day of, for example?
There's always preparation. I win the contest through my preparation. There's usually about a day and a half, no solid food. I'll have my last real meal today, but it's like 36 hours. I want to make sure that I'm absolutely empty. To make sure it takes the time to get empty and loose, and make sure that I have a reason to eat a ridiculous amount of food.
So you wouldn't have solid food, but you still get nutrition?
I'll get some calorie intake. Really, it's liquid. I make sure that it's. But I want to make sure that it's super easy to whatever I put in me. It's going to be moving pretty quick and easy.
Gotcha. I know probably people say this all the time, but it is interesting just to see you in real life. You really are kind of a slim guy. How do you maintain?
Dude, it's a battle. And when I was younger, I could get away with being heavier. Now I'm older, and if I gain weight, it's really hard to lose. It's hard to lose it, and it affects me more. And over the years, competition has become a little bit tougher too. So I have to really be on top of it. I have to be able to push my body, and it's Yeah, it's if I get lazy and if I don't run or jog and I can't control my breathing during the contest, then I get winded, and then if I'm breathing through my mouth, I'm not eating.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you spent so much time eating when you were the mouth full, essentially. You have to almost have like a kind of a second way of breathing.
I have to really be able to sneak in my breath through my nose. And it's, so if I can't control my breathing really well, then I'm really slow.
Wow. That sounds like something you would literally have to practice.
Oh yeah.
When you're not competing.
Because a lot of time when you're eating quickly, sometimes you forget to breathe. So it's a lot of it's practicing really helps, and pushing yourself, because the competitive eating, it's not like normal eating. You can be a big eater, you can eat a big meal, but it's a completely different kind of intensity the way we eat in contests.
Something like if you had like a sinus infection, you probably would not be able to.
Oh, it slows you down a lot.
Yeah.
And luckily. There's ways around it. There's the afferent and the things that open up your nasals. For a little bit, it works. And I've been really lucky that I've never really had any real, no real colds day of a big contest.
Man, that's amazing. Musicians have this way of breathing, like wood musicians.
Oh, circular breathing.
Circular breathing.
Yeah.
Have you ever? Or is something getting obstructed? You wouldn't be able to do that.
I wouldn't be able to do that exactly. But I used to play the trumpet, and I feel like one of those being able to control your breathing, it's helpful. Yeah. And being able to be calm. I think when I do yoga, that's another time when I'm really controlling my breathing in uncomfortable positions, and so being able to. Yeah, controlling your breathing is really important.
And then your body, I guess, after several minutes, is like under stress.
Oh yeah,
and probably it wants to breathe more.
It's wanting to breathe more. There's the amount of food I'm eating. It impedes breathing. Yeah, so I need to relax and make sure the food's settling deep in my stomach, so that I can still take a deep breath.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm reverting back to a lot of my performing arts training now that I think about it. So you've got all this stuff happening in your abdomen, and so that's squeezing your lungs.
It's putting pressure. Especially if that food's not settling deep. Mm-hmm. And so some of the foods, it takes more work to make it settle. But it's practice. It's one of those things where you have to build a tolerance with almost every food.
Is there a way to move it faster, that you can get it deeper faster?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's part of doing my cleanse beforehand.
Yeah.
Making sure I'm absolutely empty and the things are going to settle deep and quick. If I've eaten food the day before, then all that food's still in my intestines. So it's not going to settle deep, and it's not going to have a clean highway. Right. So it's been a lot of trial and error figuring out my body.
Wow, that's super fascinating. And do you meditate at all?
I wouldn't say not
just
really
yoga?
meditate, but it's definitely yoga and a lot of visualizing, and practices I videotape, and I try to remember how I was feeling and why I was slowing down. Yeah. And so it's a lot of just repetition.
Would you literally go over tape? Because a lot of these things are televised.
Oh yeah.
Would you watch yourself and kind of see here's how I was feeling at this moment, and here's what was going on physically?
Yeah, it's helpful. It's one of those things. For a long time, I was kind of ashamed at how much thought I put into it. But the more you put into it, the more you get out, like anything. And the more time and energy I put into every contest, the better I'm going to perform.
So for folks who maybe outside of the Indianapolis market and don't know about the St. Elmo shrimp cocktail, here's a very quick primer. So St. Elmo Steakhouse is a beloved institution in downtown Indianapolis. It has operated there for 122 years, if you can believe it. And its signature item is a king-size shrimp cocktail, which has enough horseradish in it to, I don't know, what would you say?
It's whatever kind of cold you have or a sinus infection you have, it'll clean you out. Your nose is going to be dripping, your eyes are going to be watering, and it hits hard.
I was going to say strip of paint off a car, but I have a very sensitive palate. St. Elmo's definitely draws attention to the strength of that cocktail sauce. And whenever anybody mentions it on TV, it's always about getting their brains reconfigured. What challenges specifically do you have with that sauce that you wouldn't have necessarily with another food product?
You have to build a tolerance, and it's always easier to build a tolerance for a food that you've grown up with. So hot dogs, super easy. Pizza, it's another really easy one. This one, it took a while to build a tolerance, get my body feel comfortable pushing with that sauce. I remember my first time doing it, I did 6 pounds. And then over the years, I went more and more, and I think my record now is like more than 18 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's building that tolerance, and it's getting comfortable with it.
You can buy that shrimp cocktail sauce in the store now. Would you buy it and actually kind of work with it?
I've practiced with it. Yeah, I bought it, and it hits really hard.
I
think that the stuff in the bottle is pretty intense. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it hasn't had time to air out necessarily.
Exactly. In the restaurant, when it airs out, it cools down a little bit quicker. But that bottle it's whew.
Okay.
If you keep it refrigerated, it's intense.
So, like you said, I think in 2018, I think the record that I saw was 19 pounds.
19 pounds, yeah. They give you credit for it, but you don't eat all the sauce necessarily. So I definitely ate a lot, but
it's 186 shrimp.
Yeah, and those are big, crispy shrimp.
Yeah,
crunchy. Yeah,
at 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think you had going into that, was it 8 straight wins
last year? I went into last year's contest 8 straight wins,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't get the win last year.
Okay. Now, have you gone back over the performance? What happened?
Oh yeah. Well, there was a bunch of the reasons. I had a rough year. I was slow. I hadn't been jogging. My breathing was off. I hadn't been doing my jaw exercises, and there was a bunch of weird little. I broke my leg really bad. So I had a couple and I had infections. So I just.
Oh, that's why you weren't running.
Yeah. So I wasn't running,
mm-hmm.
and so I knew going into it I was at a disadvantage, but I was hoping that I could pull it together. But the body, it's one of those things. If you don't put the work in, the body, I'm pushing my body, so it didn't perform for me.
How did you break your leg?
Out of visiting a friend in Los Gatos, and we were in Los Gatos Mountains, and we were looking for his dog in the dark, and I fell down a hill, and the fire department had to get me out of this ditch, and it was open fracture that took a while to
heal.
You
kidding me?
Oh my God, the bone was sticking out. It was like, it was bad. But it's not.
How fast did they get you out of there?
Oh my God, the fire department, they were there in like under 10 minutes, but they had to carry me like the long way up the hill, which was like half a mile. So
wow,
it took a while.
Because the first thing you would think of, when you have a bone sticking out your leg is blood loss.
Yeah, it was. I was lucky because it was far enough down in the leg that it stopped bleeding pretty quick once it got straightened out. And but then the infection with the open fracture, the infection is the biggest, and it was multiple infection. It was a nightmare.
How are you feeling now?
Feeling pretty good. Yeah.
Can you run?
I can jog. I can't run quite as fast as I used to. All the surgeries, this leg's like half an inch shorter than the other one, but I'm doing a lot better than I thought I would.
How long does it take for you to get back to feeling normal after an event like this?
This one's a little bit easier because it's cleaner. It's just simple. There's some fat, there's protein. The carbs from the sauce aren't that bad. So a day and a half, I'm feeling pretty good. Hot dogs, it's really rough. There's lots of salt. There's other things in there. We're pushing our bodies to the absolute limit for hot dogs, and then there's also the heat. If you're dehydrated, it takes longer to recover. So that one it'll be anywhere from 3 to 4 days to be feeling really good. Which I mean, anybody who pushes their body super hard, a marathon runner, they're not going to feel right for 2 to 3 days. So once I started accepting that I'm not eating necessarily for hunger, or I'm not going to, and I started accepting that I was going to be uncomfortable or not necessarily feel good. I'm able to push myself harder.
That's right. So the big Nathan's event is on July 4th.
Yeah.
And it is, where is that usually?
Coney Island.
Okay, so it's
in Brooklyn. Yeah, it's hot. Oh, yeah. And then it gets even, when it's super hot. And when I was younger, I'd push my limits. I'd stop drinking liquid really early because I didn't want liquid to sit in my stomach and use my capacity. So I was always flirting with getting a little bit dehydrated. So that's I've gotten way better about figuring out my body over the years.
And do I remember this right? That you do use liquid to help you ingest the food, right? I mean, it's not like
I'm always using warm water to help, and especially with the hot dogs, the wet bun is so much easier to swallow, and it's not pretty, but it's competition. It's competition, and I have to get it down. Even for the shrimp, I'm using warm water to help get the food down and relax muscles and get things moving.
Is the St. Elmo's inside or outside?
It's outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of.
Are you like looking at the
I'm always
at the calendar to know exactly what temperature it is?
Yeah, I think we're like at 43 around 3 p.m.
Is that good?
That's not bad. There's been years where it's in the teens.
Yeah.
And my fingers are numb.
Oh my God.
It gets. There's been years where it's by far the coldest contest on the calendar. So, but this year shouldn't be too bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what people might not know about competitive eating, it is an organized sport. It has its own professional league, its own governing body. This, like most, I guess, of the events on the schedule, are part of Major League Eating. That's the league.
Major League Eating. They're the league that finds sponsors for the most part, and or make sure that the contest is run in an orderly way and safe way, and that they're gonna find out the winner.
Yeah, so they would sanction the event, for example. The event would have to abide by the rules, like you say, safety, for example.
Exactly.
Were you involved at all in the creation of the league? I mean, you've been around.
No, it's been around a long time before I got started. I think I want to say like 92 is when they got started, and I started eating in 2005.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Does having a league make it easier for you as a competitor to make a living?
That's a weird question. The league legitimizes it. They find sponsors, and with sponsors, and then also because it's legitimized, the media covers it. The more media coverage, the more sponsors want to get involved in it. But then also there's always anytime there's promoters and talent, there's always going to be conflict. And whether it's you look at Dana White and the fighters, or you look at any kind of league, and so there's it happens. And sure. So there's always pluses and minuses, and I've been really lucky that I've been able to work through any conflict.
Mm-hmm. So I counted on the MLE website. There are 28 events for 2023. This is the last one on the calendar.
Yeah.
Is 28 typical for a year?
28, it's slowed down a little bit with COVID, and it still hasn't quite picked up what it used to be. It's usually really busy during summer. A lot of outdoor festivals, events. But 28, it's a little bit low. But I think one year, I think me personally, I did 37 actual contests. Wow. When I was younger. They had a load of them, but I do a little bit less contests, more appearances, exhibitions, and so not everything I do is run through the league, but I still love I love competition, and this event it's on the calendar, and I look forward to it every year.
So the announced prize purse for the St. Elmo's event is $3,000. That's a total purse.
Yeah.
Do you know what you would get for first place?
I think it's $1,500 for first.
Okay, $1,500. And my impression is that the total price purses for most MLE events, between like $2,000 and $10,000.
Yeah.
Ish.
Some of them will go up. I think there was I don't know, pistachios $15,000, and there was a burrito. Yeah, so some of them are definitely more.
Yeah, there's some outliers for sure. Right. And then there's the Nathan's event.
Nathan's, yeah.
Or there's the big one, which I believe is the 4th of July.
Yeah.
But then there seem to be other Nathan's events on the calendar too.
Yeah. There's a lot of those are qualifiers. So in order to get to the big show, you have to either be a champion or win a qualifier or have some sort of a reason for them to invite you. But so they do have a bunch of qualifiers every year for people to prove themselves.
What is the biggest first prize in a given year?
I think those prizes. I think Nathan's is 10,000. There's some wing contests. It used to be 20,000. But like you look at track and field competitions, and it's kind of the similar thing. There's a little prize for but then there's also appearance fees, and that I think we're kind of getting there. Competitive eating's a marketing mechanism. And if so, there's a lot of, if it's a big sponsor, they're gonna pay an appearance fee, and you're not getting paid just for the eating. You're getting paid for promoting the product and promoting the event, and so there's that route also.
Mm-hmm. In a former life, I covered the billiard industry and the professional 8-ball and 9-ball tours. And at the time, this was the mid 2000s. If you could make like 80,000 to 100,000 just in prize money, you were doing really good.
Yeah,
is that comparable?
I think that's pretty. I think the most I've ever made in pure prize money is about 80,000, and I was working, and I had to. But it's and competition. It's intense.
And for a lot of people, I assume this is part-time.
A lot of it, yeah, it's part-time. I got into it. I didn't plan on doing it the way I am now. I was in college. I got started and I fell in love with it, and I was a weekend warrior and got the degree, and I worked in construction management, and then eventually the eating was started taking over. The sponsors would want me to come out earlier to promote the event, and then it just kind of went, oh wow, I can make a little bit of a career out of it. And I never really want to say career, but I love it. I love it so much. I can't believe I even get paid for it. And
how did you get into it?
I was the biggest eater in the family and biggest eater with a group of friends, and it was one of the things I kind of was embarrassed about it, and I was always holding back. And eventually, I got signed up to one contest, and it just. I remember my first contest, and I was like, "Oh my god, I love it! I don't have to hold back." And normally I'm a really shy guy, and I was eating in front of people. It's something that I always been kind of ashamed of, and it was just crazy. Like they're encouraging. You didn't have to hold back, and I was able to. I loved it.
Yeah. You literally had a natural affinity.
Oh yeah,
for doing it.
It was like the perfect storm of everything. I love to eat. I like to eat fast. I almost get a rush when I eat fast, like a high. And so it just worked out perfect. It's almost not fair how much I was made for it.
Isn't it funny how when you're a kid, like so you almost get competitive about like how much you can eat. Like, I remember going to like Noble Romans when I was like 8, and my brother and I would have like how many pieces of pizza could we eat? Like in one sitting. And that was like a big
It's
deal.
very natural. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things about competitive eating, that it's a lot of people can relate to it. And not everybody knows what it feels like to hit a home run or slam dunk a basketball or score a touchdown. But everybody kind of can relate to wanting to eat more or of a food that they love, or wanting to eat, push themselves in a little way.
We might have to cut this from the interview, but I just remembered when I was in college, there was a sushi place, I don't know, a couple miles away. And a friend of mine and I started going there on Sunday nights. They had an all you can eat, $20, all you could eat. And and every time we went, we tried to have one more piece of sushi than we had the previous time. We got to 57 each. And so
you guys ended with a tie?
Yes, we did. Oh yeah. I mean, it was more cooperative than it was competitive. But yeah, I mean, I remember for like, a couple of days after, it was pretty horrible, but for some reason it seemed like a good idea.
It is. It's actually one of my worst food poisoning incidents was at all you could eat sushi.
Oh, seriously?
Oh my God. Yeah. And I almost went to the hospital because it was so bad after the day after. I was, barfing and vomit, everything. It was the worst food poisoning ever.
Oh, that is the worst.
I think they punished me for eating too much.
Yeah, that was it. Okay, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
Taft, today's modern law firm. With more than 800 attorneys in 8 primary Midwest markets and the District of Columbia, we provide solutions to the business issues facing middle market and emerging companies alike. We do this through a highly collaborative and inclusive team approach. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
All right, we're back with this week's edition of the IBJ Podcast and our guest, competitive eating champion, Joey Chestnut. So you, until about 2010, you were working in construction management.
Yeah. I remember, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You did a little research.
Yeah. It's a hobby.
Yeah, 2010. That's when I gave it up.
And that's at that point you were like, I think I can make this work.
It was kind of I was doing something with Pepto-Bismol, and Pepto-Bismol offered some. I forget what it was exactly, but it was like they wanted me to leave on a Thursday, and so I needed to take some time off of work. And so my boss was like, "Hey, you just take some time off and come back," because it was like I want to say 5 weeks in a row that I was doing something, and so it kind of never went back to work.
Yeah. So it's a busy season, I guess. I mean, whatever competitive eating season is.
Yeah, summertime it gets really busy, and then it kind of works out perfect because I even if I'm trying to be as healthy as possible, I'm going to gain weight during the summer, and during the winter I try to get healthy again.
Okay. Oh, is that right? So there really is it's like football. I mean, there's a refractory period where you really need just to rest.
Yeah, at least for me. There are some eaters who are like push themselves really hard, but I like going back to having a normal diet and making sure that everything still works the way it should.
Okay. So you basically went pro, as it were, like in 2010. Is that? Yeah,
I mean, even though I was the first time I was like number 1 ranked and champion, I was 2007, and and I was stubborn. I worked my butt off for an engineering degree, and so I didn't really. It was never the goal to make it my jobby job, but it just happened.
Did you have to pay off loans?
No, I was working through college too.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Great. So as of last year, you told USA Today sometime this year, you said you'd made $500,000 in 2022, and that your net worth was more than $4 million. I can understand how people don't like talking about how much money they make, but is that accurate?
It's pretty close. Yeah. It's I've been really lucky.
Mm-hmm. And so we talked about the prize money. Now, can you expand a little bit on what the other sources of income are?
Oh, wow. There's the appearance fees. Then there's pure endorsements. I have a national commercial right now still with Wonderful Pistachio.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
They're delicious. I think everybody loves them.
Wait a second. I'm sorry. I don't have like network TV, so I haven't seen the commercial. What do you do on the commercial?
It's like me eating pistachios and and it's like Joey Chestnut. Joey Chestnut cracks pistachios, and then I'm raising my hand like, you can call me Joey Pistachio instead of Joey Chestnut.
Very good. That's cool. And so that campaign is still going.
Okay. And then I started working with a management company, and so they've been able to find me more appearances. They've been really good at finding me events, exhibitions, and companies to work with, whether it's Raising Cane's or, and it's just they've been able to it really grow it a little bit.
Would that necessarily, like with the Raising Cane's, be a sponsorship or more of appearances?
It was a couple of appearances, and yeah.
So do you have a sense, like for a paid appearance, like what kind of the range would be for what you would get for that?
It'll fluctuate quite a bit based on what they're asking for, and amount of media attention, and anywhere from 5,000 to 25,000.
Yeah. So they might just want you to drop by and shake some hands, or they might want you to actually like slug down.
If it's a lot of work, sometimes it's harder if I'm doing an exhibition not against other people. So if I'm eating by myself, it's a little bit of pressure. It's harder. So it's but I still love it. But it's you got to. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it well.
But your like competitive juices, if you will,
yeah.
are not going. So it is a little bit harder to get.
It is a little bit harder sometimes for exhibitions, but one thing about the exhibitions, they do a really good job with the food. Sometimes contest food, if for a big contest, the food's sitting out for a little bit too long. But since I've started doing the exhibitions, it's like, they make the food exactly the way I want it. I'm like spoiled.
Would an exhibition like be solo, just you, or
me versus sometimes me solo, or me versus a group of celebrities or something, a group of people trying to combine their total to beat me. I've been really lucky with the food with the exhibitions.
That's really great. That's good. Does your management company have to step in and just kind of make sure you're getting things the way you need them?
They do a really good job. A lot of the time, there's a food aspect of what the sponsor is trying to promote something, so they want to make it as good as possible. And the food is so they have a reason to make it good. And sometimes for contests, it's hard. Like if they're making it for 20 people, it's hard to prepare it versus one person who's like, it's easier for them to keep it warm and fresh. And I remember there's the thinking back to the Raising Cane's when they made the fresh. I mean, fried chicken if it sits out, it's rough, but it was nice and perfect and juicy. And
So when did you get the management company?
2021.
Oh wow! Just like really recently. So what were you just doing it all yourself?
Oh yeah, it was a nightmare. It was.
Were you like just fielding emails of people asking you to come and do it?
Oh yeah, people. And part of it would go through Major League Eating, and it was hard because that's when we would butt heads a little bit because competitive eating is weird. There's no way around it. It's different. So it took me a long time to find the right agency to work with.
Who's the agency?
Everest Talent Management.
Everest?
Yeah.
Like Mount Everest?
They're out of Santa Monica.
Okay. So that's just fascinating. So how do you compensate them for what they do? Is it a fee?
Oh, yeah.
Or do they get
percentage base?
They get a percentage.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So if you don't get paid, they don't get paid.
Exactly.
But
they're looking out for for me and for future.
If there was so somebody maybe who is entered an event that you're in, just kind of on somebody who's on the part-time level, but it goes like, you know what, I really feel like I could be good at this. I would like to be able to do what you do and basically make this my life. Where would you tell them to start? What kind of advice would you give them to make this a career?
A lot of people are already doing it on their own. Like there's the YouTube people and
what's that?
TikTok people. There's people do the eating challenges in restaurants, and there's a good number of those guys who have and women who have following and lots of viewers and subscribers. So they're already making money. And by the time they even do their first contest,
and that's totally outside of MLE.
Yeah, outside of MLE, they're already. Then they have a following, and it's so the restaurant challenges are a pretty good way to kind of gauge where you're at because you have an idea, and then it's you got to figure out your body. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Putting your body through the practices and preparation and recovery and learning and pushing it to the limits and it's taken me a long time and my body's changing. I'm 40 years old now, so I've changed the way I practice quite a bit. I can't practice nearly as much as I used to.
Is it like other sports where you reach a certain age and you lose some of the attributes that you need to be good at the sport?
I want to say I lose them. It's changing though. I know my body better than ever before. So I have that, and I have the knowledge of how to push myself and how to train. But I remember I could train for hot dogs every 3 or 4 days. Now it's like I'm lucky if I can do it once every 7 days, full on practice and recovery but it's because I'm pushing hard anybody who's pushed it. There's no books necessarily written about competitive eating. There's no real trainer. It's not like there's you have to put in some serious time and figuring out your body.
I was looking at your social media accounts. It looks like Twitter, you've got 60,000 followers.
Yeah, I wish I was better at all.
Instagram,
I get social media anxiety. Dude, I can't post things. Like,
wait a second. Okay. That's my first question.
Like, oh my god.
This is my first question. You are still doing your social media account.
Yeah.
So you haven't hired somebody to do your social media account.
Sometimes I was working with people. Like, let me have access to it, and they're like, no, I'm too picky.
Yeah.
I'd rather not post than have somebody post in a voice that wasn't mine.
So you're doing all your own posting, but you still have anxiety about like how you appear. Are you afraid that this is going to sound dumb?
That's probably. I get shy. I read comments. I've gotten better, but it's hard. Yeah, I wish I was better at posting and just walking away from it.
But I would assume, when you were working with a sponsor, they want you to use your social media account at least a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To kind of push the product or your relationship with the product.
And that's actually easier, especially when it's something that like I'm behind and I like it. Every once in a while there's something that I've agreed to post that I'm not 100%, and it happens. I just gotta roll with it.
Oh, I also saw there's a Joey Chestnut line of condiments.
Oh my god.
That's true, right?
Yeah, it was going pretty well until COVID. No, it just ended up during COVID, everything, manufacturing costs went up a lot.
Yeah,
and I didn't want to raise prices to $5 for some mustard, and it was so we were able to gently pull the plug on it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
so they're not available anymore.
Not anymore. We might bring it back, but we'll see if we can. It's really hard to get those numbers to work, and if we could have produced more of it, it might have helped. But
how did that work? Did someone like approach you and say, "Hey, we'll make condiments and you can put your name on them and we'll all make money"? Or was it more driven by you?
It was driven. I was part owner. So it was more than just putting my name on it. I had a full role in every part of it, which was fun. I learned more about that industry than I ever thought, and it was fun meeting people who came up with recipes for it, and it's work, and it's one of those things that I only do have so many hours, and I if I could do it again, I'd maybe change a couple of things, but it's hard to promote a brand and also travel and compete and worry about my body as much as I do.
Yeah. I do want to ask you just real quick, how did you end up in Westfield?
Well, like 10 years ago, I started coming out to Indianapolis for the shrimp cocktail contest, and every time I'd come, I'd make more friends. And And I enjoyed coming out here, and because I do so much traveling, and I was on the West Coast, and every contest I do or event I do, I have to do some radio for it usually, and I was waking up at 3 a.m. sometimes doing East Coast media, and so I started thinking, I Indianapolis is West Coast or East Coast time zone, and I looked at houses. My fiance loved it, and we made the move.
Wow. And Westfield was the right place, or had the right house at least?
It had a bunch of things. I mean, the winters are a little rough.
Not so much anymore, I will say.
But it's perfect. And I still travel so much. I'm on the road 140 days a year, and so being kind of central is way easier.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring.
Yeah, traveling all the way to San Jose, it was a lot of flights.
Well, this has been super fascinating. When did you move to Indianapolis, or when did you move to Westfield?
It was February of 21. Yeah.
Okay, so you're
almost 3 years.
Okay, you're a resident.
Oh yeah,
you're for real. Okay,
yeah.
You'll be here for as long as you want to be.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, great. Well, belated welcome. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by. This was really fascinating.
Oh, great talking to you.
Why, thanks again to Joey Chestnut. And folks, before you get on with the rest of your week, there are a few stories in the latest issue of IBJ I want to bring to your attention. First up, a renewed attempt to impose a fee on downtown property owners for initiatives aimed at public safety, cleanliness, and homelessness in the Mile Square appears poised to succeed after gaining steam among Democrats on the City-County Council. Taylor Wooten takes stock of the growing support. Also in this week's issue, John Russell reports that Eskenazi Health has launched a $60 million fundraising campaign to address health disparities across central Indiana. And Dave Lindquist shines a spotlight on the resurgent Paramount Theater Center and Ballroom, which debuted in Anderson in 1929. And again, you can find these stories in the latest print edition of IBJ or online at ibj.com. And thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ Podcast. I'm Mason King. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back again next week.